Alison and her husband, in their 60s, decided to sell all of their possessions, belongings, in order to explore the world.
Tears help a lot. I don't hold anything in. And so I find if something is distressing me and I let myself fully feel it and cry the tears, then the lightness comes afterwards, a grounded and joyous way.
Hello, everyone. I'm Nataly Rader with World Cultures on View, and I'm extremely excited about the meeting today. We are meeting with Alison Armstrong, writer, blogger, photographer, traveler, with a very fascinating story.
What we can't control, ever, not one of us, we can't control where we are born and the circumstances we're born into. And it has a massive effect on the rest of our lives. And so the whole idea of getting rid of everything, that was not frightening, that was freeing.
And today we're meeting Alison and hearing her story. It is great to have Alison Armstrong in studio today with us. Alison's story is extremely inspiring. I am inspired, even though I have not heard the entire story yet. And I'm very excited to have this meeting. Alison.
I'm just so excited to be here and do this. It's great. So go ahead.
Thank you, darling. Let's start by introducing yourself. What I know about you is basically close to nothing, except for that I love your writing and I admire your story, and I would love to hear all about it.
I'll start. I mean, I've been a traveler all my adult life, I think. I've always traveled. I've not always been a photographer. I was born and raised in Australia. In my early 30s, I immigrated to Canada. But before that, I devoted probably 8 years of my life to international travel, where I would leave Australia for 18 months at a time and go travel the world and then go back to Australia to make some more money for the next trip. And I did 3 trips over 8 years.
Sounds awfully familiar.
Yes, yeah. Oh,
Except for different locations.
Yes, my entire life from early 20s to early 30s was focused on travel. And then I immigrated to Canada, and I lived in the far northwest, up in the Yukon for nearly 10 years, cooking in big game hunting camps and gold mining camps. So, and going back to Australia for holidays and to get away from the winter. But I've never had a conventional life. I just don't know how to do that.
You mentioned gold mining camp. Did you gold mine, or you just landed there?
No. I was the cook.
You were the cook.
Yeah, and there was big game hunting camps was mainly what I did.
Okay.
Hunters would come, just amazing lifestyle. The hunters would come mostly from Europe.
Okay.
And it was trophy hunting, which I hated, but the lifestyle was amazing. We lived in the complete, utter wilderness, in frame tents or log cabins in the wilderness for weeks on end. It was just extraordinary lifestyle. And then I also did 2 seasons where I cooked in gold mining camps, and they were much bigger operations, but still in the Yukon, in the wilderness. What's not to love?
Well, I believe that interaction with the crowd just in those 2 places must have been absolutely incredible and fascinating, just from human psychology point of view. I mean, dealing with the hunters who trophy hunt, and as you said yourself, you hated it, so you had to put your feelings aside and do the job while still interacting with the people. not per se approving their activities. And then the gold miners, I mean, those people work extremely hard, and being surrounded by this, to me, gold mining is just the concept of this wealth, and people who actually don't have much of it work so hard to retrieve it from our Mother Earth, right? In order for others to benefit.
Yes. It's gold mining. Well, I mean, I only know about it in the Yukon, but it is incredibly hard work. Some people get quite wealthy from it, but mostly not. Mostly it's, I mean, in some ways it's good because it means a whole bunch of people get employment for the summer or spring, summer, fall. You know, there's the hunting camps were small groups. Eight at a time was a big group in the hunting camps. Usually it was anywhere from 3 to 5, small, and usually really nice people. And also the interesting thing about the hunting camps was the hunting guides would take the hunter out for the day into the wilderness to stalk whatever animal they wanted. And every single guide that I knew ended up retiring, just getting right out of the business, because they finally got to the point where they couldn't bear to see the animals killed. They just couldn't do it anymore.
All right, moving on to you and your adventure.
I eventually moved to Vancouver. I eventually met my husband and we got together later in life. I was 48 and he was 56. And both of us were done at that point with relationships until we met each other, and it was like, oh, okay. And so we've been together for more than 20 years now. And what happened was we had a mortgage and we had some other debts, and he desperately needed to retire. By this point, he was 68 and still working full time. He had his own practice as a neuropsychologist, and we just didn't know how we were going to do it financially. That we just couldn't. There was no road ahead for us, and he was actually to the point where he was making himself ill with worry and having to work. And this was, are you familiar with a book called The Artist's Way?
Yes, of course.
So a friend recommended to Don that he read The Artist's Way and do the exercises in it. And so he started writing morning pages every day, 3 pages of just writing, anything at all that needed to come out. And on the 3rd day he wrote, well, we could sell our apartment and go traveling. It's like, okay. So we actually sold or gave away pretty much everything we owned. Car, home, furniture. I mean, we just reduced down to almost nothing. We had a small storage locker, sort of an 8x10 storage locker that we had file boxes, winter clothes, camping gear, and all the rest was gone. We had nothing left.
Okay, I have to ask, emotionally, was there a fear of, even though you made the decision and you were following through, was there, you know, in our Western world, we're so predispositioned to focus on the material well-being. Well, not only Western, the entire world is seeking it, right? And leaving everything behind for the sake of adventure, to most of people, it would sound completely insane. To me, it sounds admirable, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But from emotional point of view, were you nervous? What if something goes wrong.
No.
Well, when I come back, what am I coming back to?
No,
And
no. The decision felt so right, powerfully, deeply right for both of us. Did I go through times of being afraid? Of course, we probably both did. I think from memory, some of my biggest fears were around, how am I ever going to get this apartment empty? Well, I had this mountain. I mean, you know what it's like when you have a place. Over those, the nearly 6 years that we were homeless, we did a lot of house sitting. And I discovered something that I kind of knew, but it came really clear to me. People acquire as much stuff as they have space for. And as long as you have space for something, you keep bringing it in and bringing it in and bringing it in. And, you know, every home we went to, cupboards stuffed full. And Don and I have been in our current apartment for 4.5 years, and we're in the same place. All of our cupboards, we keep getting stuff. So the apartment we sold, I had this mountain of stuff to go through, to sort, to label. Am I going to sell it? How am I going to sell it? You know, what am I going to charge? Fear of charging too much, fear of charging not enough. I mean, that was a 4-month process that was at times really quite stressful. I'm trying to remember, I don't think the whole idea of getting rid of everything, that was not frightening. That was freeing. Just stuff. You know, and I mean, even before Don and I got together, I was, I'm going to use an Aussie word, I think, a rat bag. I was a financial rat bag for all of my adult life. I could never focus on having a career or making money. It was just not in my makeup to do that. It was more in my makeup to seek adventure. And you know, all the cooking in the wilderness camps, although at the time I loved cooking. I was good at it and I enjoyed it, but I made a lot of money, and that money was not it was for adventure more than anything. But anyway, all the years that most of my adult life, I've been in survival mode, you know, just enough money for a lot of adventures, but certainly enough to have a roof over my head and enough food to eat, and most of the time to have a car. But I never had property. I never had any kind of wealth. And in some ways, Don was my savior, you know, because he had a career and he had a good income. And so once we got together, oh God, I could finally get out of survival mode. But one thing I learned over all those years, I absolutely learned, is stuff is the easiest thing to come by.
Yes.
You can always get more stuff.
Yes.
So 3 times in my life, over the course of my adult life, 3 times I've let go of absolutely everything I owned. Everything.
This was not a new thing for you. This was a familiar process.
A very familiar process, yeah. Because it's only stuff. I mean, when I moved, before I left Australia, before I started traveling, I was married briefly in my early 20s. And of course, I had a house full of stuff then. We had owned a home and a house full of stuff briefly for a year or 2.
I love the way you say stuff.
Yeah, it's just nothing, you know. And but I, you know, and then I moved to Canada with basically a backpack and a little suitcase. So yeah, it's easy.
It's easier said than done for most people.
Yeah.
But yes, for those seeking adventure and craving adventure, I think it's just such a motivation to finally get out there and go that it does become easy getting rid of stuff. It's just getting to that point where I'm making a decision and it's like, okay, I'm doing it. But once you start going with, minimizing, it's like, oh, wow, this is awesome. Wow, let's do it.
Yes, it's so freeing.
Yeah. All
So
right. So you sold all your stuff. Generated whatever amount of finances, and what was the first country?
Well, so we sold everything, and we had enough to pay off the mortgage and pay off all our other debts, and still a big chunk of money left over. Mainly,
wow, you had a lot of stuff.
No, but well, it mainly came from the apartment, selling the apartment. Right. We sold our condos. So. Anyway, the first country was Italy. We started with a short bucket list, and it was 3 places both of us had always wanted to go to. One was Tuscany, not even Italy particularly. We both wanted to see Tuscany, but especially Don. He'd had this longing all his life to go to Tuscany. The second place we wanted to go to was Ramana Maharshi's ashram in Tiruvannamalai in India. Mm-hmm. Both of us, I first saw a picture of Ramana Maharshi in my early 30s before I moved to Canada. I was doing some breath therapy, and the place where I was doing the breath therapy had a picture of Ramana on the wall, and I just looked at it and it's like, who is that? It was just this instant connection to his energy. So both of us wanted to go to his ashram in India. And the third place we both wanted to go was Bali. So that was our initial itinerary, was first to, have you ever heard of Damanhur, the temples of humankind?
No.
Oh, the most extraordinary place in northern Italy, a couple of hours drive outside of Torino. This intentional spiritual community, I think back in the 70s, a long time ago, started building underground temples secretly because they had no building permits. And they created these amazing underground spaces that I can't even begin to describe them. They have secret passageways and staircases that rise up and down, and I think half a dozen separate rooms that are filled with beauty, incredible beauty. And I knew about this place, so we thought, well, we'll start there. And we set up kind of I guess an appointment, a meeting with them to see the temples, and anyone can go see the temples, and you can see them online virtually. At one point, someone broke away from the group and reported them to the Italian police in Torino, and the police chief came out to the site and demanded to see the temples, and they wouldn't show him, and he said, if you don't show me the temples, I'm going to blow this place up. I'll blow up the whole hill. So they agreed to show him the temples, and he came out in tears and said, I will do everything I can to preserve this place.
Wow.
Yeah.
Unexpected turn.
Yeah, so it's the temples of humankind, Damanhur. I'm saying that twice so people can look it up online. Beautiful, beautiful, extraordinary place. So we started there, and then we went to Tuscany and spent a few weeks. Well, we went to Cinque Terre and Tuscany and spent a few weeks there. Over to Barcelona. A longtime family friend lives there, so we went to visit her. And finally back to Canada to do some, administrative stuff. Oh, also at that point, we went to Montreal for Christmas because we have family in Montreal. And then we went to India. And when I traveled when I was young in my 20s, I never wanted to go to India. I thought it would be too dark for me. I thought I'd be too disturbed by it because of the poverty. I guess I was raised with this idea that not that it's unsafe, but that there's a lot of suffering there. And so I didn't think I could deal with it. We've been to India 4 times now. I fell in love with it the first time. I took on the second time to fall in love with India. We fortunately have friends who live in this same town where Ramana Maharshi's ashram is, and they helped us with a really soft landing. They sent their driver to the airport to get us. They rented an apartment for us, and we lived there for 3 months, and we went to the ashram every day, and it was like a pilgrimage. It was beautiful. It's a dirty, dusty, grotty Indian town. And
Amazing.
it's India.
Amazing. So your impression, you were worried at some point that you would not like it, or it would be difficult for you to be there because of all the issues that you mentioned in the country, as you knew, but you did not feel any of that, right? I mean, India is incredible.
India is amazing. India is, I mean, I would go back in a heartbeat now. But here's what I learned that first trip to India. We would walk from our apartment, we'd walk into town every day because it was on the way to the ashram, and then we'd climb the sacred mountain to the upper ashrams. And it really was a pilgrimage. But on the way into town, we would pass all these beggars. And something shifted in me. This is what I understood. Yes. When we grow up to be adults in the world, we somehow, because of the structure of the world, the way it works, we somehow have to figure out a way to make money. Almost all of us, all the time, at least have to make enough money to feed ourselves. How people have to grow up, when they grow up, they have to get a job. And that, you know, many people make bad decisions in their lives. Many people make good decisions. Most of us make a mix of both. But what we can't control ever, not one of us, we can't control where we are born and the circumstances we're born into. And it has a massive effect on the rest of our lives. And so I got this understanding that the beggars this was the best job they could figure out how to do. Given their life circumstances, there's no rhyme or reason to it. It's so random, but it's like, this is their job. This is their job. It's not, I don't know, even have the right words for it, but, and then I thought, well, a fundraiser, the big fundraisers, that's their job, asking people for money, usually for their own salary, as well as whatever organization they're working for. And so I came to see the beggars in a whole new light. It's like, this is their job. Their job is sitting on the street asking for money. And so I would collect and save 10 rupee notes. 10 rupees for me is nothing, 25 cents. 10 rupees for a beggar in India is it's a goodly amount of money. And so I would have my pocket stuffed with 10 rupee notes. Don called me Lady Bountiful. We'd walk to town, and every beggar that asked me for money, I'd give them 10 rupees. And this was like almost every day. And so I got to know them on this really beautiful human level. It was so sweet, because instead of them being beggars on the street, I allowed in their humanity. Oh, makes me want to weep. So I think that was a big part of India changing for me.
So You know, I have a question for you, which I'm sure that a lot of listeners would have as well. So you set off to travel. I'm not sure how you calculated your budget, but how did you navigate in the countries while never being there? You mentioned an apartment versus a hotel. So your accommodations, would you rent an apartment for a certain amount length of time, stay there, and considering that you set off to travel for unknown amount of time,
Yeah,
an unknown amount of
yeah.
countries, how did you plan?
Um, it really, really varied. Um, Sometimes we'd go to a place and we'd have everything all planned out. Like when we went to Myanmar, for instance, because we went to Myanmar. Um, it was right. It was in 2013, I think, and tourism was really starting to boom there. And once we started making bookings, we realized we really had to plan this and book everything, or we wouldn't have anywhere to stay. And the hotel, we were in a 3-star hotel in Yangon, and there were people coming to the desk asking for rooms and being turned away. I mean, it was so in that kind of situation, we would plan in great detail transport and accommodation. And one of the great joys of that was that for our 3 days in Inland Lake area, the first night, because there was nothing else available, we stayed in a 5-star hotel in the middle of the lake. I mean, it was just, there's just this little bit of luxury for us that was wonderful. And then other times, often we would go to a city and rent an apartment for a week and do day trips. We did that quite a lot.
So navigating, I mean, you travel through different countries with a different original language, but did you find that most of people spoke English? I mean, booking local accommodation upon arrival requires communication, requires language. How did you get around? In India, yes, people do speak English, but Myanmar.
People who work in the hospitality business speak English too. So in hotels and people at taxi drivers at the airport, we didn't ever land in a foreign country at the airport and not know how we were going to get into town.
So you did your homework?
Always. Always. And I guess I can't stress that enough. Do your research. So we would get off a plane and there would be a ride waiting for us. After that, we'd figure out local transport, and we'd ask people, we'd ask locals, well, how do we get around? But yeah, we would never land cold at an airport, especially in.
I do.
Do you? You're so brave. Oh my God.
I am terrible at preparations, and I am not the most detail-oriented person.
Don vowed after Tiruvannamalai that he would never go back to India.
Why?
He couldn't deal. The ashram, yes, but the rest of it couldn't deal. And then we saw the best exotic marigold hotel.
Mm-hmm. That solved the problem.
Oh yeah. So we went back to Australia, did some more house sitting for my friend, and planned a trip with my sister and her husband, who were with us for the first 3 weeks, but we spent then a total of 6 or 7 weeks traveling around the northern part of India, and then 6 months in Southeast Asia. So, and really, once we left India, where we did have pretty clear plan set up with drivers and hotels and things. Once we left India, we went to Southeast Asia, and that was all we just make it up as we go. You know, we did a 40 hours of traveling from Delhi to Koh Samui in Thailand. It was just nonstop for 40 hours, trains and planes and ferries. And we got to, it was a hotel at the quiet end of the quiet beach on Koh Samui. And we stopped for 2 weeks.
I hope so.
We just stopped for 2 weeks. We just, and then we started to think about and plan, well, we want to spend 6 months traveling around Southeast Asia. What countries do we want to go to, and where and how? And, you know, so we do it that way. I mean, I don't remember all the details now, but after Southeast Asia, I think we did another stint back in Canada organizing stuff. And at some point we went to South America. We thought, oh, 6 months in South America, that'll be enough. We didn't see any more than half the continent. I mean, it's massive.
It's massive, packed with so much.
Oh, and so much to see and do there. We didn't get to Venezuela or Brazil. It was like, by the end of 6 months, it was like, oh, we were done. We have to stop somewhere. We have to go, you know. So I think, I don't know where we went after that.
Did
we
you rent a car? Did you have
No. We did, mostly we traveled by local transport. I mean, over the whole nearly 6 years that we were homeless, we traveled by local transport. In some places we rented a car.
We call it homeless. That is such a wrong term for your state.
I should say then intentionally homeless or nomadic.
Yes.
Yeah.
You were nomads. Yes.
We were nomads. We had no home base.
That's it. Not homeless, because
okay. Well, it's very
this
freeing,
beautiful blue planet is our home. You know,
yes.
It's for people like us and for people like you who decide to travel in this style. This planet is home. No matter where you are, it's home.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, and that's a really good point, Natalie, because one thing I learned for sure is every roof over your head is home. It might be for one night, it might be for a week, it might be for 2 months, but right now, this place that I'm at, this is my home.
Alison, the home is here.
Yes. And for me, my home is with Don.
Well, there you go.
You know, if it's here and it's in yourself, and with me, it's also it's being with Don. And so home became this incredibly fluid thing.
Do you know how fortunate you are?
Yes, okay. I absolutely do. You have no idea. Yeah. Horseshoes, drowning in horseshoes. You know, lucky horseshoes. Yes, I do know how fortunate I am.
Amazing. Yeah. Amazing.
So much gratitude. I mean, gratitude more than I could ever express. It's like I don't have enough gratitude for how lucky I am.
Beautiful.
So anyway, I use the word homeless quite deliberately, actually, because I know it has connotations of suffering and people who are in trouble. But for me, at the same time, I want to express that we were truly nomadic. In that sense, we were truly nomadic. We didn't have a home waiting for us somewhere. So we had to learn that home was where we are, wherever we are.
Liberating.
Incredibly liberating, yeah. Yeah. So this whole period of time, we started when I was 61 and Don was 69. And that was 10 years ago. And after nearly 6 years on the road, it was like, can't remember how old I was by then, but we were quite a bit older, and we knew we had to stop. And when we started this whole period, we had no end point and didn't need one. It was like, this is what our life is now, and we'll grow until it's time to stop. And, you know, we never made a decision to stop so much as I quite desperately needed a hip replacement. And so we were forced to stop. But at the same time, we came to understand that it was the right thing, that we would keep traveling, but not in that way where we're always looking for where's the next place we're going to live. Sorry, I'm moving around a bit here. We did a lot of house sitting. We did a lot in hotels, a lot in apartments. Sometimes our house sitting, we'd go back to Vancouver for 5 months at a time, sometimes in order to maintain our eligibility for our medical plan here. And so twice in that nearly 6-year period, we were in Vancouver for 5 months and moved 11 times in 5 months. Well, that's more than every 2 weeks you're moving somewhere else, you know. So
but because you didn't have a home base, it was kind of easy. It's like moving basically from one Airbnb to another.
Yeah, or one house sitting gig, or they wouldn't quite overlap, and it's
because
like,
there is no attachment, there is no personal connection to the space.
Right. But it also got tiring. You know, it got so, and so we decided, I mean, with me needing hip replacement, that was it. We at least needed to stay in place for 12 months. As it turned out, 7 months. 7 months after my surgery, I was traipsing around Japan and China for 2 months.
Love it.
You know, it's like, you think you can stop me? No, I don't think so.
I break kind of humanity on 2 parts. One is brought to this life to have a particular goal and walk towards it throughout the life in a very planned and specific way. And there are others, for one or another reason, different type of souls who come to this lifetime to just collect the experiences. And if you don't do that, you feel suffocating. You end up in a stagnant environment and space and vacuum, which is so draining and exhausting. It's this constant need, not necessarily to move, but to experience new. Experience new. And nobody teaches people like us that. Nobody encourages people like us, you know, to do that. It's the need. It's a deep spiritual need, which is, I find so fascinating. Like, how is it possible that there are some people like that and some people are just like that?
Yeah, I know. Some people are like, I have both friends and family who were quite literally born to be musicians. They were never going to do anything else with their life but be a musician. And for me, looking back, I understand with absolute clarity, I was born to do 2 things. One was inner healing. And I've done a lot of inner healing with many different modalities over the years, all of which has been, so enriching, because it helped me be in the world in a more grounded and joyous way. And the other thing I came to do was experience it all. And so I liked what you said. I don't know if you used these words exactly, but I'm an experience collector. And
you know, it took my lifetime for me to figure it out, because I've tried to anchor myself.
Oh God, so did I.
Of course. I mean, you kind of feel this need to fall into the standards of society's expectations, right? So you try.
Yeah.
You try, you give it one shot, you give it another shot,
Oh.
you give it another shot, and then you realize, I can't.
Yeah. Yeah, same. So because of COVID and having to not be able to travel for the last couple of years, Don and I, at least finally we got back to Montreal for Christmas this last Christmas. The year before we missed, of course. But we've discovered snowshoeing. And it's it's so much fun. It's like just a bit less than an hour drive up to the mountain, and there's snowshoe trails all through the mountain, and we strap these things on our feet and we just go, and it's
forever.
Yeah, and it's so much fun. So you know what we haven't talked about at all is photography.
Let's talk about that. Even though, but you know, the reason, thank you for bringing that up, and I can't emphasize enough through my platform. I know that a lot, and this is going to be in the cut. This platform shares storytelling, cultural storytelling. And I know there's a great deal of followers who come into the feed to see pretty pictures. And I keep constantly emphasizing that this platform is not just for the pictures. It is a story. Pictures is only part of it. Photography is only part of it. You don't even, you can just work with your cell phone if you know, decent quality. And, but it is about, I want people to visit this platform to learn, to feel like they are traveling with the photographer, with the artist, with the writer, with the blogger, whoever it is I'm featuring. And so that's why quite often I don't even talk about photography, because that's almost complementary to everything else. But okay, since you mentioned, let's talk about photography. So, did you shoot with your phone, the cameras?
No, you know, it's been such a journey for me, both the photography and the writing. Both have been, because when I started, I mean, Don and I had done a 6-week trip. We'd done a 6-week trip to Europe. This was before we sold the apartment. A 6-week trip to Europe, and then another 6-week trip to Australia. And, you know, I started the blog sharing that story, the Cook Islands, Australia, and Vietnam. That was but it was just a 6-week trip, and then we went back to normal life. But when we started the nomadic years, that's when the blog, it became something really important to me, to share the story of what this lifestyle was like, especially at our ages, and to share both the inner journey and the external journey. And I didn't know anything about photography. I knew I could string a sentence together, but I didn't know anything about travel writing or storytelling. I have 2 older sisters who are both photographers. They weren't very complimentary. However, they were both of them kind, patient, brilliant teachers of, if nothing else from the start, the kinds of things to photograph. And so, you know, there were times when I was visiting one of them in Australia, and she would have me at my laptop seated right next to her at her computer, and she would be working on photographs and I would be working on photographs, and she would teach me about Photoshop and Lightroom and make suggestions, and, you know, so and then the other sister, she lives in Montreal, but all 3 of us will do Zoom stuff or Skype, and we'll share screens and make suggestions about each other's photographs, but mainly it's them making suggestions about mine, which is great because, and I'm still learning, and well, you're always learning.
You always learn.
And it's been and I also have learned a lot about writing from reading other people's blogs. So the blog has been, I mean, this is really rare. I've been writing that blog for over 11 years now. And even COVID didn't slow me down. And
well, that was your outlet during COVID.
it was my,
it's quite
absolutely.
the opposite, probably, right? You wrote more extensive.
Well, you know, it was so interesting during COVID that, you know, we couldn't travel. We didn't go anywhere for over 2 years. But I kept getting inspired. I would do a post about this, do a blog post about that, or, you know, and I got a new macro lens that I'm still trying to figure out how to make it work. But, oh, do a post of macro photography, flowers and bees, you know, it was just like, so they're both the right. And I learned a lot about writing from reading other people's blogs, writers I admire who do travel writing. There's a lot of crap out there too.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And you have to read a lot in order to sort through all that.
Yeah.
But yes, you know, same as photography, you look at the works of other photographers and you get inspired, and little by little you, by trying new things, get through the inspiration, you develop your own style, writing style, photographing style, any creative style. And
I always had a creative outlet. When we had the apartment in Vancouver, I was doing a lot of painting. And so once we gave up the apartment and became nomadic, it was just automatic that I would find, I didn't even think about it. You know, it was just a creative outlet was inevitable, I guess, given my background. And the blog was just, that's what I do now, is I write and I take photographs, and the more I do it, hopefully the better I get. And I
absolutely, you know, it's a skill. It's a skill like anything else. The more you do, the better you become. And it's training process. Absolutely.
So, you know, I certainly never set out to be a photographer, and I still don't regard myself as one, or a travel writer, though, you know, I've had a few professional gigs here and there in both, but I don't pursue it.
Right.
And that's great. No pressure. You know, I like that. No pressure.
Well, I see with you, there is no pressure, period, because it's like, okay, this doesn't work, let's try something else. And whatever just falls into your lap, and you embrace it, and you just follow the guidance, right?
Inner guidance. So we're our modus operandi, if you like, about travel, since we've been living in one place in Vancouver now for 4.5 years, and we've traveled every year except for COVID.
4.5 years
in the same place. So anyway, you know, we'll talk back and forth. Do you want to go? Are you ready to travel again yet? Where do you want to go? No, I don't really want to. Got any ideas? No, nothing. I'd like to go here. Oh, really? You? No, I don't think so. And we'd go back and forth, usually for several weeks, and then suddenly, boom. Oh, yes. And we both say yes at the same time. So our latest yes is for May and June, we're going to Croatia and Greece.
Fantastic.
And we're so excited because they're new countries. Both countries are new for both of us. So,
Alison, you know what I love about all this?
Yeah.
You live in the present moment. You live in the present. You have no problem detaching yourself from what's behind, even though you keep the memories, of course, and you write about them, and it's all fulfilling experience. But you are in the present moment, and it's such a gift. It's a present, right? We all very well know the saying, it's like past is past, future is unknown, and present, that's why they call it the present.
The present, it's a gift.
Right? I think it was from Kung Fu Panda cartoon, but anyway. And I admire that. It's something that so many people try to do, and it just doesn't happen. And you guys are doing it, you and Don.
We do.
Admirable.
We really practice two things. One is being present, and the other is listening to our intuition, our inner guidance. So, and trusting that. That's another huge, you asked earlier about budget while we were traveling. When we first started the nomadic years, you know, Don was trying to keep us to some kind of budget. And then in South America, we knew we were going to go to the Galapagos. And it's not cheap to go to the Galapagos. Right. And you can go for 2 or 3 or 4 days, but we were going to go for 8 days. And it was like, boom, the budget got blown up. And from then on, there's never been a budget. I mean, there's been sensible choices, but there's not a budget. There's, you know, I mean, sensible choices in that we'll look for a nice 3-star place rather than a 5-star place. And we're not going to go for the cheapest flight, but we're certainly not going for the most expensive either. So we're, you know, taking care, but no, we don't have a budget. So there was
so hypothetically speaking, I'm super curious, right? Yeah. I mean, I'm learning from you right now. As we said, we learn all the time. So I'm learning from you right now. Because I do live in the present as well and listen to my gut, and whatever I do is following it. But I do listen to other people as well, and I learn. So, percent, you're traveling and something crazy happens like this, your budget goes out of the window, right? There is no more budget. And then at some point you run out of money completely, like you run out of resources. What would you do?
Well, we talk about that from time to time. It's like, what would happen if we spend it all? There's nothing left.
Yeah.
And we have to live on our pensions. Is it possible? Do we get enough in our pensions?
You still get a pension, right?
We both get pension.
Something, right?
Yeah. And I think our lifestyle would become quite a bit more cramped. I'm not sure if we'd be able to afford to have a car anymore.
Because you don't have anything to sell anymore. You already sold everything.
No, we got nothing else to sell. We would have enough.
You're so brave.
To have a roof over our heads and enough to eat. And we have good financial managers, and they say, well, at this present rate of spending, you have so many years left, and and then we say, okay, we're going to blow however many thousand on Greece and Croatia, and maybe that reduces the number of years we've got left by a year. We don't know, but
so worth it.
here's what we know.
Yes.
The universe takes care of you. Life lives itself. And so what I started off wanting to say when I started talking about money and budget is that our level of trust through those 6 years really grew. The trust in, this is what it is, we trust the unfolding of life. We just trust it has its own movement. And if it is presented to us to go to Croatia and Greece in May and June, and both of us are going a very clear, clean yes, we don't think about whether or not we can afford it or whether or not it's the right or the wrong thing. It's this trust in the unfolding, trust in our gut, trust in life living itself. And that came from all those years on the road, that trust. And one of the things we learned is if something feels really difficult, stop and walk away. If something is easy and makes us feel excited, we're on the right track. So, yeah. And there's no, we're not cavalier about it. We don't throw caution to the wind, but we do, I have to say too, that for me, this is not actually even religious or belief in a higher power, or it's just this sense of life unfolds and lives itself, and it's completely random. And I mean, every day we're immersed in what's going on in Ukraine, and just heartbroken about it. And do I have thoughts about going to Croatia in 2 months' time? That's awfully close. Maybe that's going to be the end for both of us in Croatia. And it's like, if that's how it is, then that's how it is. But the idea to say yes to going to Croatia and Greece is so clear, and so then that's what we'll do. Does that? It's trust.
I was holding tears back, kind of,
Yeah,
because your the strength of your faith into being cared for and being protected by the universe or whatever. Some call it God, some call it universe. There are different names for it.
I suppose, yeah.
But to have this deep faith in it so clearly, I do believe in it too.
Mm-hmm.
But on a regular basis, I question and doubt. And I think to myself, does it really exist? Is it really the case? Do I have to step in and take charge at some point? Because it's scary. It's scary to completely let go and think that everything will work out the way it's supposed to be.
So I don't think everything will necessarily be lovely.
No, that's why I very carefully said supposed to be.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't always have to be shiny and sparkly and actually even work in your favor.
Yeah, exactly.
Even when darkness happens, it's part of the process.
Yeah, and see, I also know very well that I can sit here with in a warm, comfortable home with plenty to eat, with friends, with a loving husband, with all the good things of a Western lifestyle, and say this, and not know how well I would do if suddenly I'm destitute. And would I do as well being destitute? I don't know. That would be an adjustment, wouldn't it? One thing I know for me is tears help a lot. I don't hold anything in. And so I find if something is distressing me and I let myself fully feel it and cry the tears, then the lightness comes afterwards. And so I guess that's the best that I'd be able to do if things got really bad. So, I do trust the unfolding because, I suppose I trust the unfolding because we don't have any choice. It's going to do what it's going to do. Life is so random.
Do you feel like when we try to
have so little,
we actually interfere
with
the process?
Yeah.
We're like totally walked away from the travel right now and talking about completely.
I know.
I love it.
Completely different. Yeah.
Yes, I love it. I love it because it's a part. Again,
it absolutely is.
When people decide to travel, when people decide to make a certain move, when people gear up on, to go on a journey, there's so many reservations and so many fears and so many concerns.
Yes.
So keep reminding that if it feels right in your gut, if this is something that you're being guided towards, you gotta do it.
Yeah.
You gotta do it.
Yes, exactly. Do what feels right. Trust your gut. And I guess it takes years of practice with that, of trusting your gut. of listening to that inner voice, to the one that that you don't second guess.
Right.
The voice that you don't second guess. So
remarkable. You know, you're so inspiring, and it's such a pleasure. Truly. I think especially at this time, with everything that's going on in the world, it's so important to hear for so many people this, you know, those words to everything will work out.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean it will work out in the way that you envision it or you want it, but it will work out in a way where it would lead to the next step, which is meant to happen.
Yeah, always.
It's really wonderful. You know, I always try to, you know, think of questions while I'm listening. So you touched quite a bit on what your plans are, and I guess I was about to ask you what's next, where are you going, but you already answered that, and your answer is you're going to listen to the universe, you're going to listen to the guiding voice, you're going to listen to whatever is meant for you will be there. And it's so beautiful.
It just unfolds.
With everything that's happening, I really hope that Europe will find peace and calm, and that your trip would be safe and exciting. Well, this has been truly wonderful and inspiring.
Great conversation.
Yes. It's been really great, and I have to thank you. Really, I have to thank you for this conversation.
My pleasure.
It's been wonderful. Wonderful meeting you, wonderful hearing all your thoughts, and wonderful learning about your story. And all I can say is I am wishing you and Dawn best of luck and many, many, many more amazing adventures, which I believe you will have. Thank you.
Same to you, Nataly. Same to you. It's been so lovely to meet you and to have this conversation. And really, maybe we'll meet in person one day.
It's wonderful to connect on the personal level as well. And